Welcome to Untamed Blossoms, the podcast where we celebrate the untamed journey of womanhood. Here, we tell the stories of incredible women who have embraced their authenticity, inspiring others to do the same.
From entrepreneurs to artists, activists to adventurers, we share triumphs, challenges, and the beauty of self-discovery. These are the stories of women blazing their own trails, breaking free, and blooming unapologetically.
Join us to connect, be inspired, and celebrate the power of women's stories. Together, let's rewrite the rules and embrace our wildness.
Welcome to Untamed Blossoms. I'm your host, Amanda Riley.
And I'm Christy Riley. Welcome to the show, everybody.
It's been a week, 2 weeks since we've last recorded.
I was sick again.
The children that you babysit, your grandkids, are petri dishes of grossness.
Listen,
adorable.
This should not be a problem for me, okay? 30 years of wallowing in every funky virus children could possibly have. I never got sick. I've been gone from children's now for...
Well, that's it.
6 years.
That's it. That's why.
No, I'm convinced that it's my my one dental filling that needs my root canal. So if any of you don't know, root canals in your teeth are really terrible. You should have them out. It can cause all kinds of disease in your body, and I have one.
Yeah,
and it keeps showing up on my biofeedback scan.
Yeah,
and now it's bothering me, and I think my body is so overwhelmed by that I'm catching everything that's coming my way. My husband didn't get it. My kids didn't get it. Nobody else in my house got it.
Yeah.
So, the 6-month-old should not take me down routinely. She's got a brand new immune system. I understand that she's getting everything.
Yeah.
Me, on the other hand, this should not be happening. So I scheduled an appointment to have it pulled.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to get it out.
Good.
I'm a little afraid of the implant. He wants to do an implant, and I'm scared of it.
Why are you scared of it?
Something about drilling into the bone of my mouth that I'm like, bah.
Yeah.
And you have to keep it just the rod
for a while for it to heal.
Yeah. And the thought of hitting that and it being in my bone makes my bits hurt.
Yeah.
I get like a whole something about it that I've always been really petrified of the dentist. I've never had a good experience except for my current dentist, who's a holistic dentist, and I love him. But anyway, that's a whole nother trauma story. But so I've never loved it. And so when they talk about it, I'm like,
Yeah. It's crazy. Mouth stuff is the worst, honestly, because A, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
B, it freaking hurts no matter what.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, it's a hard, weird cycle of avoiding the issues. You know what I mean?
Well, I have a whole, and this is going to feed right into what we're talking about today, is really holistic wellness, in that back in the day, we were very poor. And so we were on Medicaid. And the only thing that you could get as a Medicaid person when you had cavities was the mercury fillings. And I had really soft teeth, courtesy of my mother. Apparently it's a genetic thing. And so I had a mouthful of mercury fillings.
Yeah.
Up until 3 years ago, until I realized, and I was like, oh, they're fine. And then I started doing all this research, and I'm like, oh no, that mercury is literally leaching into my brain. Sweet. I need to have those out. So I had those all fixed. And then when I went to see this holistic dentist, he was like, oh, you have a root canal. And I was like, is that a problem? It's been fine.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, yeah, basically they just sit and rot inside of your mouth. And it causes a whole lot of underlying infection it's not an infection that is so bad that it's like a toothache and it takes you to the dentist. It's just a low grade, constant infection happening under there that causes you to be really ill. And they've linked root canals to your cervical nerves, and that those lead to every parts of your body. And literally, if you've got a root canal in one tooth, it'll link to certain organs in your body. So if you've had issues with XYZ, with your hormones, with whatever, it's being linked back to what's happening in your mouth. And so, as we know better, we do better. And so as we get more and more research under our belt, we change it and we pivot. And, at the time, I would have never thought that a root canal was bad, you know?
Well, even now I'm just thinking like this all sounds wonderful, but most people don't have access or
Mm-mm.
can afford to get this kind of dental care I mean, most people, someone as myself who has got a bridge that costs $5,000,
Right.
like it's not accessible to most people to take the kind of care of their mouth that they need. Like,
Right. Right.
it's
really
brutal.
hard.
It's a brutal cycle.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard for it to be. I mean, that the one tooth, I'd like to get a root canal replaced with a implant is like $8,000.
Yeah. It's
And I'm like,
insane.
I don't know that I need that tooth. You know, it's a
Yeah.
molars in the back, and I'm like, do I really need it? I would rather have a bridge and a fake one than do all of that. Plus, I'm freaked out about the thing, but
Yeah.
it is a very privileged place to even have somebody that can have the money to pull it out. And of course, our insurance isn't covering any of this. My insurance will probably, we do have dental insurance, and it'll probably cover just the extraction piece, but it'll only cover certain pieces and parts of the extraction. The way he has to do it, he uses this ozone technology to keep the infection in its place and make sure that they get it all out, and then it doesn't then leach into other places and like release it into your body basically and make you super sick when they pull it. It's a whole thing that I'm like, I don't know how normal people would afford it, honestly. It's a whole methodology that they use.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting.
It's crazy.
It's interesting to think that how many people are running around here with really bad dental care because of lack of funds and because the cheap stuff was what Medicaid would pay for. That's what you got, and it's not always great.
Yeah. Well, healthcare in general. Am I right?
Sissy, amen.
I've been reading that book, Roar, and I'll link in the show notes because I'm obsessed with it right now. And it's pretty specific to training and what she's doing as an athlete, but she spent a lot of time working and researching and understanding the female body and, how nutrition and wellness and fitness and all of that come together with medication and supplements and all of these things. And it's just so funny because she does a nice job of not isolating anybody, but for anything that she talks about of goals, the thing that she says over and over again, and so you shouldn't be drinking alcohol in this. You shouldn't be taking NSAIDs. Like you shouldn't be. And so it's just interesting because no matter what the goal is, it's like, why are you doing that when you're doing this? You know what I'm saying? Don't be a doofus. Or like,
she's not calling anybody out, but sort of calling you out without calling you out.
Or just like the crazy stuff is how horrible low carb is for women's bodies. Like it is detrimental. If anyone is listening, and I do mean to isolate people, just take 1 second to really research and understand what carbohydrates do for women's bodies. Right. Not just research in general, because most of that is on men's bodies, but on women's bodies. Literally, it can cause havoc on our bodies to do low carb. So I know it's just been really interesting and wild what women get told. And that's why I'm excited to have Nia on today to talk about just fitness and wellness. And she's a health coach, and I'm really excited to hear what her thoughts are and her programs that she's running currently.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to her.
Hello, Nia. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I feel like I haven't seen you literally since like maybe 2008.
Probably. Yeah.
You guys went to college together, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you were maybe a couple years ahead of me, right?
I graduated in 07.
Okay, so I graduated in 08.
Yes.
Yeah.
Were your sorority sisters together? No.
I never joined a sorority.
Got you.
Which is
But
crazy.
you guys went
which is
to such a tiny school that everybody kind of knew everybody.
Oh,
Got
it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
The best and the worst thing.
And I grew up in a small town, so it was like going snowballing right into it.
Yeah, totally. Did you ever have any classes with Dr. Dickerson?
I don't think so.
Okay. So he was our communications guy, right?
Okay.
Right.
And I will never forget, like, I really wanted to have a radio show. And so Doc was like, okay. And he gave us a show time. And he was like, hey, if you're going to have a radio show, you mumble too much. Because I can't really understand anything you're saying. He's like, so if you want to do this, like, you have to really practice enunciating and not rushing through your words.
Right.
And I was like so devastated. I was like a 20-year-old with like a very high ego. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's saying I'm terrible at this. And it's just so interesting now, like, because I love doing things. Like, I worked at 10 TV. I just always really liked being in this arena.
Yeah.
But that advice he gave me, like, really changed my life and allowed me to be able to do things
Absolutely.
20 years later.
Start from the start.
Yeah. Shout out to Dr. Dickerson.
Yeah.
It's mostly me she's mad at because I trail off my son.
Oh.
I'm like, Christy, don't trail off your sentences. I can't edit
Gotta
this.
get on her.
Yeah.
Let's stab you in the eye.
So what have you been up to, I guess, right? So you went to school for PT?
No, I went at Heidelberg, I went to school for athletic training.
Okay.
Major. So I was the one with all the sports teams getting hundreds of hours of, oh my gosh, so much time spent in the training room. So that was my major. And then graduated, obviously. And then I went on to get my physical therapy assistant degree after that.
Okay.
So it was one of those things. I applied to PT school because that was the thing. It was like with athletic training there, it was a great experience. However, I quickly realized like my junior and senior year when it got really intense that this is not like the life for me wanting to have a family someday. And like we would get calls from the coaches like at 10 o'clock at night, like, hey, we're changing practice to 5 a.m., not 6 a.m. And you'd have to be there and get everything prepped and ready. Like, this is not it.
This is a lot.
This is a lot. But I still, finished the degree program and everything. Tons of great experience. So I still use that honestly today. But then I applied to PT school and I'm like, I'm going to be a DPT, Doctor of Physical Therapy with athletic training. That's going to make me super marketable. It's going to be great. Well, I applied to all these different schools, didn't get in. So I'm like, okay, plan B. What am I going to do? Right. So I decided to, I got on a wait list to a couple schools, but it was more in the sense of I could either wait a whole another year to apply again or reapply and cross my fingers and hope I get in, or I could apply to PTA school and probably get in, especially with the background and classes I had already taken at Heidelberg. So I did that. I got in right away, started, and it's only a 2-year program versus a 4+ year program. And so that ended up working out perfect for me because then I could start working sooner and work in the clinic. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so when you were doing that at Heidelberg and you had you're saying the hours were kind of crazy, what was like your mindset of like long-term career wise? You said that you knew it wasn't going to work for our family. So did you have in mind like, okay, I know I want to be a parent. Like that's a goal for me. And I know if I want to start a family. So this is the direction I need to go. Or did you feel that pressure to really figure it out?
I think I knew at some point I would want to have a family when that would happen. I didn't know, but I just knew it wasn't conducive to just a life that I wanted to just be like so stuck on what other people were telling me to do. And I never thought of this. It's interesting but you had to do it. You had to put your hours in. You had to show up. The coaches changed it. You just had to do it. You'd be there till 9 o'clock at night. You started at 6 a.m. Like it was nuts. And
you were at the end of somebody else's chain all the time.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And I knew, especially, the further I got into it, I'm like, I got burnt out, and I'm working 2-3 part-time jobs to pay for stuff. So, I mean, I was doing all the things. And with athletic training, it wasn't paid, it was just all your experience and everything, which is what it was. And it's fine. But I think that did start, very ironically that you're saying this today. I thought about it. But I think it did kind of spark something that like, it's just not conducive to what I want my life to be at some point, whenever that would be.
Yeah, for sure. And
what are you just connecting? Go ahead and tell us what
I'm
you're
just
connecting right now.
Because further down the line, like where I am now, there so much has happened. But now having my own business and now I'm making my own schedule. I don't have to report to anybody. Like everything has completely come for full circle. And that's just kind of crazy.
Beautiful.
That kind of was a spark that I didn't know was there.
Yeah.
So
we're always being guided, I feel like,
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like that wasn't the physical therapist path wasn't for you. Like, nope, we're not going to let you get in. No, move you a different direction.
Exactly. The door was shut. So I look around, see what options I had.
Yeah.
But that's life. I mean, we all go through it. It's just more of our own path and trying to figure it out.
Right.
And what was your connection at that time with like the wellness world? Like, did you know it was more than just what you were doing from like an athletic sports standpoint? Like, how did you feel about like the holisticness of medicine and what you were learning?
Back at Heidelberg, like at that time?
That, or even when you went on to further schooling?
In college, with my athletic training and even in my physical therapy years, I didn't really I didn't know about holistic health. It's so much bigger than it used to be.
Right.
Which is awesome. Love it. However, I didn't start to I started noticing. So when I was a physical therapist assistant, still am, but when I was practicing, it was an outpatient clinic. So we'd see at one point like over 200 patients a day. Like not me personally, but like we had to see patients back to back to back.
Right.
Whether they needed that full time or not. And so that's when I'm like, I don't really like someone like the insurance company saying, well, we're not going to reimburse unless you spent X amount of time and you had to get your billing right. And it just started to like not feel right for me. And I don't know. It's just, I started noticing. So it's just like the productivity became more important than taking care of the patient. And again, what we were doing for the patients wasn't considered. You'd have to put so much paperwork sent into the insurance company just to justify, hey, we need 6 more visits. Like that's not, meanwhile, your patient's on hold, they get worse while you're waiting on the insurance. So it's just the system just wasn't working. Yeah. And then I decided to specialize in women's health, pelvic floor physical therapy. So as a PTA, again, physical therapist assistant, that was kind of unheard of to have that type of subspecialty. But I loved it because I feel like as women, I don't want to say we're so uneducated about the female, like our bodies.
Oh, no, you can say it. We are. No, we are.
It is just like mind-blowing to me how many gaps there are. And if you're not advocating for yourself or knowing that you're allowed to advocate for yourself, you're going to probably suffer with a lot of different things, whether it's a hormone imbalance, whether it's, even something as simple as a cesarean section happens all the time, right? I would have countless patients come in and their doctors never mentioned what to do for constipation, what to do nutrition-wise to help with constipation, what to do with their incisions, scar mobility. So these women would come in begging for a prescription from their doctor to finally be getting seen after they've been suffering and having a newborn and they're sleep deprived and all these different things when they could have been working on their scar mobility like on day 1 or 2, right? So it's just like, why would your doctor not say this? But they don't know. They're not trained. They're in, they're out, and that's
siloed. It's such a siloed
for sure
industry, right?
For sure.
And we in your intro we talked about the research is all done on men.
100%.
We're not small men.
No.
We're not small men in any way. We have cycles, we have hormones, we have things that men don't have to deal with that we have to deal with. And it affects everything medically. Everything. Yeah. It changes everything. Yes. And we're not educated in school. We really aren't. It's not part of our education. I was a nurse for 30 years. You were a PTA. Like we're not taught these things in Western medicine school. If you go to, I want to help people, I want to be in this industry. There's a whole segment that is, because it's only been studied on men, that gets abandoned for women. Absolutely. Yeah. And we're just treated like small men, and we're not small men.
We're not small men.
Yeah. And we talk about this. It feels like every other episode that we're talking about like how this is the case. But recently I started reading this book and she's just talking a lot about how not only are all this research done on men, even things to the temperature of office buildings are literally set on men and their bodies. And it's like crazy because we're so different. But then even like supplements and things that we should be taking. And it's just, it can get so crazy because no one ever sits down a 20-something-year-old female and is like, hey, you really should prioritize protein and make sure you're getting creatine and fiber. But boy, do they tell you how you can restrict your calories. And if that's the case of just like a baseline, then you add the complexities of any sort of illness or injury and even a very specific female issue of pregnancy and what to do with that, there's just not any information unless, like you said, you advocate for it.
Right. Yeah. And then you rely on your friends and your coworkers and everyone else, which we have to because there's nothing else to go on.
Totally.
And then you can get more misled or even more misinformation. And then, we're just fighting for our lives really with, symptoms you might have or issues going through without anyone really advocating for you.
And the day of like social media and learning things from TikTok and Instagram and people are just, they hear one thing and they're like, this is what you should do.
It's factual. Right. This is factual. 100%. We're not going to do any further research. Somebody on Instagram decided to make a reel about it. Yep. It's clearly fact. Yeah. And that's not really true. A lot of disinformation can come on social media of all kind. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an experience. And it doesn't mean that those people are liars. It's what they believe, but it's not necessarily great for everyone. Right. And that's what we were talking about ahead of time, is that the human body is so complex. But so amazing. So amazing, right? But what necessarily is great for me might not be great for you. Right. And vice versa. And we get put into these diet windows, if you will, these troughs, these quick fat diets. Like, this is the next big thing. This is the next thing that we're going to, it's going to, it worked for her. So I need to jump on. I need to lose 20 pounds. Right. And then, it even the most well-intentioned things, I have a friend who just had biofeedback done. She's a vegetarian for political reasons. Like, she doesn't want to kill all these animals, right? She's doing it for the right reason. Her biofeedback lead literally came back and said that she was starving herself. Like, she's not getting the nutrition her body needs by participating in that diet. Yeah. And it's literally causing her to be deathly ill. Right. And I'm like, this is we think we're doing all the right things, and really we're doing so much harm to ourselves by being in these kind of fatty, crazy diets. And everybody, and going back to what you're doing now, everybody's different. And I would love to hear how you're addressing that.
Yeah. So after physical therapy, moved up the corporate ladder, did management for a few years, and it was burnout city. I was working 60 plus hours a week. I would have to do my actual job at home after working the 9-hour shift. Like, it was nuts. I'm like,
and did you have any children at this point?
Yeah. Or? Oh yeah. I had 4 kids. When I took the management role, my youngest was 6-9 months or so. Like, he was less than a year for sure. And so quickly got burned out. Then COVID. That was fun. Being a manager and going through that, furloughing people, it was just super. Right. But I learned a lot of business side of things, right? Yeah. And what to do with a business, what's successful and what's not. Great business ways. Right. And so ended up leaving there in 2021, and I went and found a wellness coordinator position at a senior living facility. And it was advertised as such as you're helping physically with seniors, mentally, kind of these 7 pillars of health, which I'm like, this is my jam. So I was all about it. Loved it. Had a brand new wellness center and things like that here in Columbus. And 2 years in, they decided to let the whole department go. So this was just last. And here I am thinking, like, this is finally lining up perfectly for like total wellness, not just exercise, not just nutrition. It's looking at the person as a whole. Right. And we got let go. Like, no notice whatsoever. So, and during that time I was there, though, I was really getting into holistic health, because I'm like, there's so much more than just exercise. There's so much more than all these crash diets and bad diets. And, there's so many out there. Right. There has to be a better way that like really simplifies it for people, because everyone wants a quick fix. Who doesn't, right? We want 20 pounds gone like that. It doesn't work that way. Right. We all know that. And so I got my health coaching certification as an integrative health coach. And what I loved about the program was that it took all these different pillars of health and helped that person for where they were. To meet them where they were was like, this is it, because we're all in different spots. We've all gone through so much, good, bad, ugly, you name it. We've tried 1,000 things. And so how to really help assist people get to where they want to be and start feeling better, not just physically, but inside as well.
Right. Mentally, all of the things.
All of it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's how that started. So when I lost my 9-to-5 job, I was with the decision, do I find another corporate job, right? And deal with all of that? Or at that point I had my LLC and I was just doing it on the side with health coaching. I'm like, I'm just going to do it. So I found a way, and yeah.
That's awesome. What was that conversation like with you and your husband?
It was fine. It was very out of the norm. Even for me, it was very much a lot of doubt. Even though I know a lot, like I'm smart, I know this, but when you start to put yourself out there, you're vulnerable completely. Yeah. And so a lot of it was kind of proving myself, not just to him necessarily, but to me, like, can I actually do it? Can I be successful with this?
Well, the money show up.
Right.
Like I have an income that I have to replace, right?
I have 4 kids.
Yeah.
I've always worked. I've never been able to be at home. And so like, we're very dependent on my income. So it was like, this has to, like, there's not another option. So I think that was my drive to just like, if I'm doing something all in, like I am all in. I'm not like halvesies anything.
Yeah.
So
I think that was like my big drive. Like, this has to be successful.
What were you able to take from that management time of stepping in that role? You said you learned a lot about business, right? So what were you able to take from that experience when it comes to starting your own? That you said, okay, I saw how that was being ran. Like I saw the business side of this, and this is what I want to do, or this is what I do not want to do.
Right. I think the biggest thing for me, I mean, customer service, I've worked in that with patient care, comes with the territory. Yep. So I think that was a big piece, and just feeling heard, because, especially in today's society, like money goes by way quicker than it ever has. And so if I'm charging somebody a fee for this service, what are they getting out of it? Are they finding value in it? Because if they're not, and it's not relying on insurance to pay for it and so forth, what am I bringing to the table? And can they take away and say, that was worth every dollar, every penny? So that was my biggest thing, probably.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so where did you start with like services? So what do you offer? And what have you been focusing on or maybe expanding on as you've grown in your own business?
Yeah. So right now I work one-on-one with clients 3 days a week here in Columbus. And then the other 2 days I do virtual health coaching sessions. So I have Wednesdays and Fridays right now typically open for those virtual sessions. Down the pipe, I have, in the past, I've done workshops also. And that's really fun, where I just pick a topic. And I did one for a women's group, a couple months ago. And it was just so much fun. I loved it.
Good.
It was just so much fun just to teach and learn and have a small group where.
What was the topic?
The topic was just integrative health. Again, just very general, but there's so much that we don't know.
Right.
And a lot of women don't know. And it's like, my whole thing I say all the time is, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And then what are you going to do with that information moving forward?
Right.
So sometimes it can be very overwhelming with nutrition, how to read a nutrition label, which may be simple for me and you, or, whoever, but it's not for a lot of people, especially in today's diet culture where it's like, count carbs, count macros, count this, count that, or don't count this. That one doesn't count. Where my philosophy that I work with, not just in that workshop, but with clients also, is what are the ingredients in the food that you are consuming?
Right.
Because if you have this highly processed food that's low calorie, low sugar, low fat, well, what is making it taste sweet? Because it still tastes sweet. Right. So there's all these other ingredients that are, I don't want to say hidden in there, but they are, but technically they're on the label, right? But that's where I educate a lot of, like, what are you consuming? Taking a step back versus, don't eat this, don't eat this. That's not going to work with people, at least in my experience, where if I come in with a red pen and, say, nix this and that, it's too harsh. It's too hard. We know we need to eat fruits and vegetables. That's not the problem. But the problem is our habits that we've created our whole entire lives to get us to where we are right now.
Right.
And even I think they do such a good job of tricking you on the label with how, great example. I'm trying to limit. Okay, I'm doing my best to limit my dairy intake.
Mhm.
Okay. There are so many different names that dairy can fall under. It's not just going to say milk.
Right.
It's not just going to easily identify itself. There's like powders that have a very complex name that just basically equal dairy.
Right.
And I think it's just really hard because even if you're doing your best or trying or reading labels or whatever that looks like, you don't know that. Like you said, you don't know, you don't know. So how are you to really understand? And also when you were talking about integrative wellness, can you explain what that means so people listening can get a better understanding? Because I think that's something that we see often, but maybe we don't really understand like the concept of it.
So to me, integrative wellness is not just your physical health. Okay. You can be in tip-top shape, but you mentally might be going through, right? You might have chronic stress. Chronic stress is causing inflammation in your body. Inflammation in your body is presenting as eczema or said symptom. There's a whole list that could go on there. So integrative health, what I do with my clients is we use this tool where it looks at 12 different areas of your life and you kind of grade it. And in that moment, where are you right now? Just like a little snapshot. It could be finances. It could be your career or your hobbies. It could be your spiritual health, your mental health, obviously. So there's 12 different categories that
family is in
family,
there.
Exactly. Your job, all of the different things. And so when I always get the funny look of like, why the heck am I doing this? But they don't realize that their financial stress is affecting their joy, which is affecting, it's just kind of this cyclical thing. So when I present that to clients, I love it because they're like, wait, what? Why are we doing this? But then it clicks and they're like, oh, I didn't realize that this was affecting this. And my overall health and well-being isn't as great as I thought it was, despite me eating perfect and exercising.
Right.
So that's what integrative health is to me. So with my clients, I work on 5 to 6 different categories. Nutrition obviously is huge. Sleep is huge. And this is not, again, new information in the sense of like, we know we need to get 8 hours of sleep, right? But how many of us do on a regular basis? Not many, right? And so teaching sleep hygiene and habits and what is your morning routine look like? What is your nighttime routine? How much are you on your phone at night watching TV? Do you fall asleep to the TV or is it completely dark in your room? All of those things matter, which are going to affect your hormones as well. So again, one little thing like, oh, I'm on my phone at night or I sleep with the TV on, no big deal. Well, it does make a difference. So that's where, again, a lot of education. So again, nutrition, sleep, stress management is huge because again, in today's world, as women, we carry a lot. We're typically the ringleaders of our household. I have 4 kids. And so I know everybody's schedule, where they're supposed to be, soccer, choir concerts coming up, permission slips, you name it. It's constantly going on in my head. And so I know I'm not the only one in that regard. But when we have that chronic stress, again, that shows up with inflammation or as inflammation in our body, we are not made. We were talking earlier about how amazing our bodies are. Like it's a well-oiled machine when you give it the right things. And so if I'm in a constant state of stress, we're in fight or flight, that's not meant to stay on all the time. But in our society, a lot of times we're, okay, now I just got off work. Now I got to run over here and then I got to run to the grocery store and then I got to make dinner and then it doesn't stop. So unless you're purposely trying to fix that and get that better, but again, we don't know how, right? Yeah. So that's where I come in as a health coach to like really break it down with that person, where they are, what their needs are, what their goals are.
And sometimes it's just giving an outside perspective to somebody's situation. I think, and this is not about women in general, but my husband had a work situation the other day and he was in it, right? He's all in it. And I come in and I go, well, why are you doing that? Why don't you have this person do?
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
yeah, I just freed up my whole day.
Right.
Right. Is it like that? Do you have that experience where as a coach, you come in and you, as you go through their day to day, minute by minute, you can help them see alternate ways of doing things.
And I help them work the problem out themselves almost, because if I say, well, don't do this and don't do this, like that's easy for me to do, but what are you going to do with it? You can go home like, well, I know that, but how do I actually apply it? Right. So that's where when they start thinking, if I'm, yes, that outside person coming in, but then giving some little tips, but then they're like, actually, if I did this, this would really help me. Awesome. Let's try it. Because if it comes from within, it's going to be way easier than someone else telling you.
Right.
What's the biggest thing that you see from your clients that if you were to give advice to anyone listening, you could say this one thing can really be a detriment to your overall health? Or if there's a couple, I guess.
Moving every day, some way, somehow. Working with seniors, I see it pretty regularly where if they're not moving, they decline super fast. You think when you're in the hospital, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't got out of this bed for 5 days. You're losing so much strength on a daily basis. Like it's unreal. So walking is like huge. If you can walk every day, that's huge. Nutrition wise, if you start eating real food, like if you have a sweet potato, that ingredient is a sweet potato. It's not a sweet potato flavored, blah, 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 blah. So the more real and whole foods you can get, the better your body is going to recognize it, the better nutrients you're going to be getting. And you don't have to worry about calories and macros and this and that when you're getting the nutrients that your body needs. Trying to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, makes sense. And you mentioned a little bit about hormones and how that can impact. What do you see with women coming in that might be premenopausal or like going through it? Like what are some of those stressors that you've witnessed through clients over time?
I've just gotten my hormone health certification recently. And so I'm diving deeper into that, which again, it's advocating for myself, trying to figure out my own body. Therefore, I can help other people too. Again, what's going to work for me may not work for you or you. However, our society has so much impact on our hormones. For example, like the xenoestrogens, which is our environment. How much plastics we're consuming on a regular basis is like crazy.
Staggering.
It is.
You could imagine chewing on a credit card. Pretty much. Swallowing it.
And then you have it in your brain. Like it
microplastics we consume.
All the microplastics. So that's one thing. And you might notice too, girls, like my daughter's 11, like the puberty is starting earlier and earlier and earlier, right? Well, why is that happening? A lot of it's because of these estrogens where it matters what we're putting on our body. Lotions, Bath and Body Works galore. I mean, that was my jam back in the day. However,
the worst offender, y'all.
Right. Had I known that all these chemicals are toxins for our body, I would have never put that on. So now, like, I used to slather on. I mean, I went through a stage in my mid-30s of terrible cystic acne. And I'm like, here I am. I'm a grown woman. I don't need this stuff. Like, it was embarrassing. It was terrible. Yeah. And so, of course, I go, what can I add to my body what can I put on to make this better? I had this 7-step, face regimen and all this stuff. Even though it was like pretty clean, quote unquote, it was still adding more to my body. So instead, what finally worked is starting to eliminate food triggers and dairy and gluten for me at that time, all these different things. And now taking out perfumes, lotions, all these different things, and try to get back to literally the basics of not adding more to my body, but taking out, including stress as well.
Yeah. That's a hard thing to do. Talk more about that as far as stress management, because I think that, there's certain coaches that'll say, listen, stress is coming at you. You can't choose whether your kid's going to start vomiting in the middle of the night. You can't choose to have to go, do I stay at home with my kid or do I call off work again because I have 4 children and somebody's always sick and the husband and I have to decide all the time. Right. What does that feel like? Like, how do you coach women or your clients, women and men, on stress management? Because I feel like Management means how do you handle stress when it arrives to you, not how do you completely eliminate it from your life, because I don't know that that's possible.
Yeah. And I would agree. I don't think that's possible. We're going to have it at some point. It's just a matter of how we handle it. And so stress can come in different forms in terms of the physical stress, right? There's a tiger in the room with us right now, right? There is a physical stress. So my body is going to respond to that. My eyes are going to dilate. I'm going to start sweating.
Heart racing.
Everything, right? Our body is going to go through. When we have an emotional stress, our body literally responds the same exact way. Even though your best friend told you this gossip and it's this emotional stress, or so-and-so did this to you at work, or whatever it is. Right. So that emotional stress, our bodies physically respond exactly the same. And then even perceived stress, when we're reliving that same moment over and over and over again and venting to my friend that, can you believe so-and-so did this? Reliving that over and over, our bodies, again, are having the same exact physical response as the tiger in the room. So when I educate my patients on that, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that when I kept venting and going on and on and on about the same thing, that my body, that was a trigger to my body. So I think putting it into that perspective and educating on that is a big piece. Not to say you're never going to have stress. That's not realistic. But how do we handle that? And so one thing I also educate my clients on is give yourself 10 minutes. Give yourself 10 minutes, get through it, right? Like feel all the things you need to feel, because if we suppress, that's also not good. Not good. Right. Yeah. And then that's going to build and build. And can go up in the wrong way. So feel what you need to feel for 10 minutes. And then after that, make a decision of how you're going to move forward. You can either keep reliving that same stressor over and over. And not to say that there aren't things that don't come up. Like that's reality also. Right. But if it's something like the drama and the so-and-so said this and that, or can you believe this happened at work? I can't believe she said this. Those are the things where we do have a choice, where we can either stay in that moment and keep reliving it, or we can move forward. Yeah. But we have to realize that we do have that choice in a lot of things, not everything, of course.
Right. Well, I think that's where like getting into your body and out of your head is so important, and getting into movement during those times as well, because it's a lot easier to, for me personally, a lot easier to process some of that through movement and working through it that way than letting it sit or just choosing to like, okay, I can't deal with this right now. I don't have time. Let's move forward. Eventually I'll get to this. Well, it lives in your body. Right. And then if, to your point, you repeat it and you're going through the whole blame, complain, defend cycle of like going through the scenario again, that's also not helpful. So it's like, how can you get out of your mind into your body, feel the feelings, process it, move through it, let it go. Right. You know?
Yeah. Just choose to move forward, right? Like just choosing to be like, I'm accepting the situation for what it is.
Right.
I don't, whatever that is. Right.
Especially when there's situations where like, you can't change what she said. Right. Right. Or whatever happened at work or whatever the situation is. You can't change that. You can choose to have a conversation with that person and move forward with that. Or, you know, if that's not an option, then, you know, you have
I'm going to hang it right over here and I'm going to leave it because I don't need it anymore and I can't do anything with it. Or because you're the one that suffers, right? Right. That person may not be thinking about you at all.
Yeah. Yeah,
they're not bothered. Absolutely. But you're miserable days later, weeks later, and months later, or whatever. Every time the person walks in the room, right? Like
you're the one holding the hot coal. Right?
You're the one holding the hot coal. Yeah.
And I think as I'm almost 40. This summer I'll be 40. It's wild to me. So I feel like I'm like, all this wisdom is coming. But I find that I am protecting my energy fiercely. Yeah. And so when I come into those instances where it's like, you know, I'm just like so much quicker now to move on and let go and all these different, feel what I need to feel and then move forward versus 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have stewed on this thing for a long time. Right. So I don't know what that means, but I'm loving it though, because I'm just like, I don't have time for this.
Well, I think as you get older too, you're like, why am I spending my precious time rehashing something with you for the 50th time that you're in control of? Like, that's not helping you. It's not helping me. Like, and you don't want to waste the time that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And one thing I love and that I teach clients is, like you mentioned, moving through those hard times or challenging times with the stress management. One thing I love is walking with intention. So walking is already doing great things for the body, but I like to have clients tap into their 5 senses. So what are you hearing outside? Like, go without your headphones, just be in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've lost our intuition in a lot of different ways. Because we've been gaslit from doctors. We've been told, oh, it's all in your head, right? So
it's normal.
It's normal. Your labs are normal. This and that. But I feel
But you're just
right. Like,
you're just saying, you're a crazy woman.
Right.
You're just going a little crazy. We'll just give you an antidepressant.
Exactly. It's like, okay, cool. No, but when you're tapping into your senses while you're moving, it really does start to ground you and can quickly calm you much faster than walking for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So tapping into your senses. What do you smell? I smell fresh cut grass. I smell the flowers that are blooming on the tree. Because once we start to hone in on these different senses, our body calms much faster. Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of deep breathing techniques that have been proven to be more beneficial than anti-anxiety medications too.
Right.
Which is like mind-blowing. Because again, that's what happens. You go in, oh, here you go.
Here's a pill.
Here's a prescription.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah. And all of that is just bringing you back into your body. Mm-hmm. It's just really centering you back into your body and out of your mind.
Yep.
To bring you to the 5 senses. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is why meditation's so powerful. And, we take a class around the power of now, and a lot of it we spend grounding and going into your senses and into your body and just making sure that you are firmly aware of yourself and that perspective, because when you live up here in your mind and you ruminate all of those things, trigger a lot of the things that you mentioned already. Yeah. So if people want to come see you, what are some things that you offer? Currently, are you taking new patients, and then where can they find you?
Yes, I am accepting new clients. Best way to get a hold of me right now is Instagram or Facebook Messenger, Nia B Wellness. I have my website also. You can message me through there. So yeah, you just send me a message and let me know what your goals are. I do offer a free 15-minute. I usually go because it's hard to get it all in, but I really like to I always do a free consultation, and it's a health discovery call just to kind of see where are you, because what are your main objectives? What are your main goals? How serious are you? Are you looking for a quick fix? I'm not your girl. I'm not. So, if that's it, sorry. Yeah. I'd be happy to, give you some resources, but I love to educate. So you're always going to be getting handouts and pamphlets, like all different kinds of stuff, because you can leave a session and it can feel very overwhelming. Like when we're talking about the chemicals and the xenoestrogens and the plastics. Well, what can I do to improve my kitchen at home, right? With less toxins, or your home in general. So I'm always giving resources with my clients also. So that's always a fun thing that I haven't heard that they didn't like it. So,
well, it's hard, right? It can feel overwhelming, I think, in this world in general, as we're starting to understand, at least in America, that, we've been lied to in a lot of ways, right? We've been misled, and consumerism is at the base of that. They're just wanting to sell products, and the ability to be able to lie on labels or to mislead people or to just not educate people on what it does to your body if you use said products or said food additive or said whatever it is that they're putting in and on things that we're consuming or orally, like for food or on our bodies. And it's hard to know the right thing, right? Like there's a new hotness, and BPA will be the, like the plastic bottles. Well, this is BPA free, but nobody talks about the microplastics of that. Nobody talks about microwaves, and nobody talks, right? Like and now everybody's talking about all of these things.
And it's overwhelming.
It can be very overwhelming for people. What is your tips on how to get people to start slowly? Because I think that would be my, if somebody asked me, that's what I would say is like, pick one room.
Right.
In your house, right? So, but what is your advice?
I mean, so if you're looking at toxins, for example, and you're just trying to live a healthier life with less toxins and less chemicals in your home, start with one room. I love that, because you're focusing on one thing, and don't change everything all at once. Because first of all, it's expensive.
Yeah.
No one can afford to do
Right.
that. I know personally. So it's expensive. So, and I
don't go throw out your Tide.
Yes.
You paid $25 for that thing, Tide, you know?
Finish your Tide.
Finish your Tide.
But when you go to purchase a new one, start researching. I love the environmental working group because you can literally scan your items from the app. Or you can look it up on their website where you can scan the item and it grades it basically. Are you familiar?
Yes. There's one that I use. It's called Think Dirty.
Yes.
Same thing.
Yeah. So same thing where you can just scan your item, your food item, or whatever area of your house, whether it's a laundry detergent or hand soap or shampoo, whatever it is, scan it and it kind of grades it on some are 1 through 10, A through F, and it tells you why. Right. So again, we are having to advocate for yourself. And I think that's can be the overwhelming part because it's like, I don't know what the heck this stuff is. Right. But if you are given resources and tools or research the tools that you can use to help assist you with that, that can be super helpful in itself. Right. But baby steps, one room at a time, or if you're focusing on nutrition, one meal at a time, like just simplify it. Instead of buying all these boxed foods, start shopping around the perimeter of the grocery store. That's where typically most whole foods are versus the middle aisles, they have to be more shelf stable. So start with one grocery list at a time. Like it's not going to be a huge overhaul and throwing everything away in your pantry. Just start adding more fruits and vegetables. Start adding lean meat. So versus throwing everything out and then feeling overwhelmed. Like, am I supposed to eat now?
You know, okay, so I'm going to go here, but then if I buy chicken, it could be hormone chicken and it could be not pasture raised and it could be in a like you start to get down these rabbit holes of like
rabbit holes for
sure.
Like
where there's no good answer anywhere. Right. Like it can be real overwhelming.
Yeah, it can absolutely be. However, I would say at least the majority of my clients are barely eating vegetables.
Right.
Yeah.
Are barely. Right. So for me, it's like, let's get away from the boxed foods, canned foods. You know, let's
Hamburger Helper is not your friend.
Not your friend.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And
but,
so
like some people, that literally is what they can afford.
Right.
So I like the idea of, I follow someone on TikTok who also does this where it's like, we're not saying don't eat that. That might be what you can afford. Mm-hmm. What we're going to do is we're going to practice throwing broccoli in your macaroni and cheese.
Right.
Okay. We got some cheddar broccoli happening here all of a sudden. Right. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, okay, you love, just eating pasta. We're going to shove up some chicken in there and make it an Alfredo this time. Yeah. Like, it's just how can you get people to add what they can? Right. Slowly and steadily. Yeah. And, working within their budget of what they can afford and saying like, let's diversify what you're eating so you get more nutrients. Absolutely. I think that's such a smart, easy way to transition people into eating better. I used to be that same way where I'd be like, okay, juice cleanse again for a full 30 days. Right. Here we go. I will drink nothing but cold pressed juices. And I did that. And
that doesn't work.
Surprise. Yeah. I gained all 100 pounds back after, crash dieting for so long because it's just not sustainable versus now if I decide to eat a whole bag of Swedish goldfish or whatever, that's fine. But first, let me eat some chicken and some protein first to make sure that's in. I think that's a good strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like I mentioned before with my business and with my clients, I'm always meeting them where they are. Because again, like you said, everyone has a different budget. And so what I find value in, you may not find value in. And that's the biggest piece for me is like, where does that person find value? Because if I make a goal for them that's not attainable for them and like buy organic everything and this that's not going to work for everybody. Yeah, so if you can, super duper, but but it's not going to work for everybody. And that in itself can feel very overwhelming. But if I'm saying, okay, yes, you have the hamburger helper, or maybe we can make your own version of hamburger helper, right? With way less and
way less toxins,
yes, chemicals and artificial ingredients, right? Then you can still do that on a budget. So I'm very, very mindful of that because I'm on a budget. I mean, who's not on a budget? Right. But I am very, very mindful of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
And there's a lot of, and I didn't realize this when my kids were in school. I had a child show up who literally had never really been able to have a real orange themselves. their family could not afford it.
Yeah.
So it was not anything that, and it was like the biggest treat for him that he got to have a real orange, right?
Yeah.
And I think we forget that sometimes in some of our socioeconomic lower environments that people are, and I love seeing this, is that we are seeing inner city gardens happening. We are seeing schools who are participating and turning that stupid whatever lot of land that was sitting there empty into a food garden, right? And growing food so that some of these children who've never had financially the opportunity to have experiencing some of these fruits and vegetables, they would. And shouldn't we be impacting them at that level to teach those habits so that when they do become 20 years old, it's not all they've known is to not have fresh fruits and vegetables. Everything has come out of a can or been processed in some way. And while vegetables out of a can are okay, and at times we want the fresh versions if you can get them, right? So I love that these programs are sprouting up in inner cities. And
what I love about that, it just stirred a thought for me, is just the education behind where food comes from, because that has been missed a lot as well, in different socioeconomics specifically. But just to have that disassociation of like, okay, so we just got chickens, right? So I'm like I'm like a crazy chicken. Like, I'm obsessed. They're not laying yet, but I'm like talking about chickens to my clients all the time. Pictures. It's really amazing. And so I had a 94-year-old client, right? She's exercising 3 days a week, super cute, doing great. And she's like, I didn't know chickens didn't lay any other color egg than brown, like, or white, her whole life. And I'm like, what? Like, I was mind blown. So even just something as simple as that, like, where is our food coming from? What is the type of food, and giving encouragement for them to be able to grow their own food in those programs. Like, oh, I can do it in a container. I don't need to have 300 acres to grow to have my own food, but like to be able to do that and knowing that there's benefit nutritionally and so many other forms, emotionally, all the different things.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
We always want to ask our guests, can you shout out some women in your life that you feel like have really been a great influence or positive, vibes that helped you grow, any of those things?
Okay, I'll try not to cry. My grandmother, she was just the best. She was the hardest worker I knew. She had 3 husbands. I didn't know this till I was like much. I'm like, what? Grandma had 3 different husbands. Anyway, I'm like, I did not see that coming. But she like had a hard life. My dad, he was 16 when his dad passed away. And so she had 5 kids and she just did the thing. She was a teacher. She had a farm, didn't wear an ounce of makeup, but she was like out there, with the tractors and all this stuff. So she was just like a very influential person, just the best. And then my mom, also the best. She really has started this holistic life as well. Like, she's always been big into gardening, and her life was also hard. And so she always had a garden, always can. So I learned a lot, but she did it because they were on a budget. It was cost effective. We can all the tomatoes, we can all the beans, we do this so we have food throughout the winter because we're on a budget. And so, or they were on a budget. And I didn't know this growing up. Like, I felt like I had a pretty perfect normal life growing up, but knowing all that, and now she's like taking out toxins in her kitchen and like all these different things. And to see both of my parents very just jumping on and like doing this even before I knew about it has really been awesome, because I see a lot of peers, people close to my age, where they're losing parents, and my parents they're on 0 medications, they're active, they're doing all the things that they want to do, they're spending time with grandkids. And to not be limited, because again, I do see that on a very regular basis. When your life is revolving around doctor's appointments and medication timeline and schedule, and you have 7 to 9 specialists, like, I don't want that at all. I want the life that my parents are having, where they're able to do exactly what they want without physical ailments, but they do a lot of prevention. So
absolutely,
that's what it comes down to.
It's amazing.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That.
Thank you so much for coming. We're going to post all of the places that we can find you at the bottom of the episode in the show notes.
This episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, and then YouTube. Please give us a follow on Instagram and Facebook as well so you can find all of our upcoming things.
And if it resonated with you, send it to a friend. Till next time.
Yep, we love you.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.